Welcome to Horizon RC Fest 2024. This video is going to show some of our experience from the track and during a motorcycle show. Enjoy! We're going to start with some practice footage of the Losi Promoto on the 8 scale off-road track. This was a tough track for the bikes, and the plan was to move some pipes to make it easier and do some racing on it. That never happened, which was a bit of a bummer, but I still had a blast running on it because it was so technical and difficult. There were not very many marshals out during this session, so I tried to take it a little bit easier. I probably could have done a couple more jumps, but I don't think I would have made this back one. It was very hard to line up since it was so far from the driver's stand, and there was not a lot of room to get speed, so I just rolled it and tried to be consistent. Even this straight was tricky because it was not perfectly straight, but I found if I went outside here, I could clear this pretty big double. This next section was definitely my favorite. I started going outside here to make it easier to square up for the step on, step off. That led into a raised corner that dropped away before another double and a tabletop. This section was a lot of fun because the challenge made it very rewarding when you got it right. From there, you were back on the front straight, and that is a lap on this very large track. I was hoping to get some racing footage with multiple bikes on the track, and I was waiting for the main to do just that, but there was no main. Hopefully next year there will be a legitimate class because it's a ton of fun and I would love to see a full gate of bikes battling it out. You might not have expected to see this at RC Fest, but with the launch of the Promoto, I thought it was a good time to bring some full-size bikes into the RC world and put on a bit of a show. I'm not going to show everything that we did in this video, but besides the normal trials moves, we were able to figure out a few ways to add the Promoto into it, and I even brought out the Sherco Enduro bike to show some of the differences between the bikes and how it all relates to RC. The coolest part was probably the fact that Horizon Hobby was generous enough to give away a Losi Promoto to one lucky winner.
Good job!
Alright, here goes! We did some figure eight racing, big bike versus small bike, and things got pretty interesting here. The grass definitely slowed us both down a little bit, but it was a lot of fun to do some back and forth battling with a mini-me.
Now she's getting the hang of it.
This footage is from the Friday show, and things got a little bit dirty. I took them out pretty bad there, but I was racing a legend, so you gotta do what you gotta do, right? I didn't mean to do that, but it did show how tough the Promoto is. The fact that it was able to keep going and finish the race was a pretty big relief for me. It ended up being a good battle until the last corner where he stuffed his pipe, and I took the win.
Come on, rookie.
Back to Saturday's show, and here we have a special guest that you might recognize from Horizon Hobby's social media channels. I like to get up close and personal in these situations, so he definitely put his body on the line for some extra entertainment. Thanks for trusting me, TJ. Since the Promoto has a wheelie mode, I decided to make my bike have a wheelie-only mode, and I was able to pull something off that I have never done in a show. Thanks to the Horizon crew for having me and allowing this to happen. It was cool to be a part of the event, and hopefully I will be back next year. Back to the track now, and it is time for some buggy racing. I actually picked up this Losi 8 XE 2.0 right before we left, and I did not get much time in with it. It ended up having a lot of problems, so every time I went out for practice, something seemed to fail. It was basically brand new when I got it, but it just wasn't built that well, so I didn't get a lot of time in with it before racing began. It probably wasn't the best idea to go straight into a big race like this with a new car, but I still thought I would be better off with it than with the Armour Typhon I would have ran otherwise. I ended up qualifying 8th in the independent e-buggy class, which put me in the A main. Making the A was pretty much my only goal, so I was happy with that. This first lap was pretty much chaos. I just tried to avoid all the carnage, and that ended up putting me into 4th at one point without even trying to go fast. I was too timid in some spots, but I just didn't feel like I could drive the car very aggressively, so I played it safe. That did make it tough to stay out of trouble when everyone else around me was going for it though. This was also the first time actually racing this track. In qualifying, you are on your own clock, and everyone was pretty spread out. Early on in this one, there were cars everywhere, which made it extra difficult to stay on that good line in the groove. After things settled down a little bit, I figured there would be some faster guys coming through. It seemed like a lot of them had issues on that first lap, and I thought about trying to hold them off as long as I could, but I didn't want to be that guy, so I tried to give them a little bit of room to get by if I knew they were faster. It was a 10-minute race, so I just didn't think I could hold someone off that was going that much quicker for that long. You can see here how quickly that guy is pulling away after he got around. I was hoping I could latch on and learn something, but I just wasn't ready to push my pace that much. I was worried about staying ahead of Andrew though. He qualified 2/10 ahead of me, but I got around him in the first lap, so I was hoping that I could hold him off, or if he caught up, that we could do some battling. Here is another example of being maybe a little too nice. I spun out in this corner, but I could have cut inside to hold this guy off. Instead, I went wide and let him by, and now I had Andrew right behind me, so it was time to try to pick up the pace. I was not able to respond, and he was able to close that gap even more. He ended up getting around me, but then making a mistake, so I got back by him. Then we yo-yoed a bit back and forth, but towards the end of the race, I had a bit of a gap on him going into the last lap. Here is another look at that back section, and there I am crashing. I tended to turn quite a bit before the double in hopes that I could hit it square and more consistently, but I still made plenty of mistakes back there. Some guys were able to straighten it out quite a bit, which saved a lot of time, but I was not confident enough to go for that line. It felt like I was going to be getting lapped soon, so I started looking behind me in order to get ready to move out of the way for them, but I didn't know exactly what they looked like, so I might have let one or two cars go around me that were on the same lap. If you are not in the battle for the top three, it can be hard to keep track of where you're at and who you're actually racing, since the announcer is probably not going to focus on you in the mid-pack. A lot of the other buggies end up looking very similar when you're focused on your own. Coming into the last corner, I had two guys ahead of me, so I had to try something. I jumped to the inside because it looked like that guy was going to go mid-corner. He ended up getting on the brakes while I was in the air, and he cut right. We collided. He got on the gas. We got stuck together, flipped over. There goes Andrew. I wasn't sure if it was a racing incident or not, so I let him go by. But either way, it was not a great way to end the race, and I ended up in 8th. It was really cool to be able to watch the pros in person and compare some of their lines and lap times with yours. Of course, I was nowhere near them, but just watching how aggressive they drive looks like so much fun, and it makes me want to get better. Although my racing was a huge challenge, I really enjoyed it, and I plan on doing some more. We were pretty busy with racing and the show, so we didn't get to do as many of the other activities that I wanted to, but we stayed after on Sunday morning and drove a little bit more. This is the monster truck course, and it's not quite as pretty as it was day of, but it was still a lot of fun to blast around on, and it makes me want to come back next year to get involved in some of the competition. We also did some crawling, and for being a small man-made course, it was actually pretty good. There were quite a few lines to work with, and you could challenge yourself and your rig quite a bit. The gates they had set up at the time were pretty easy, but they were probably more for stock rigs and first-timers. That's it from Horizon RC Fest 2024. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you there next year. I do have an affiliate link with them now, so if you want to help me out, you can click that link in the description below before making your purchases.